bit. So how long has Designing the Obvious been out now?
Designing the Obvious has been out about 1.5 years now, I think. And it's been selling very, very well. It's been off and on the Amazon bestseller list a few times, which has made me very, very happy.
I'm sure it has.
Special thanks to a few key blog posts here and there.
Yes.
Every so often a good review goes up and then shoots back up on the Amazon list, so that's really nice.
Okay, so what does Designing the Obvious, why would a designer want to read that book, and what would you hope they would gather from it when they read it?
Sort of the core message to Designing the Obvious is that in order to design any successful web application, a web user experience, it really boils down to a few key principles. Basically, sort of core tenets to design, which are, make sure that you are bringing across a consistent message, make sure that you have only built in the features that are actually necessary and that you've excluded some of the things that are unnecessary. You strip out some of the bells and whistles, make sure that you're communicating exactly what...
So simplicity. Right.
I'm selling simplicity, basically, and the 7 principles kind of teach you exactly how to do that. If you follow the 6 or 7 ideas in the book, the main ideas, it will help you achieve that simplicity. And through doing that, I use a lot of examples from existing websites that are really, really good, and I also point out exactly what it is about them that's good, and maybe where some improvements could be made. I talk about a couple of projects that I worked on myself. And just within that, you can take out those 7 core ideas and apply them to pretty much any project, and improve them just dramatically.
Now, when I was reading your book a while back, I was really interested in the concept of mental models, and I'd really like to just have you tell us a little bit about what that is and what the power of mental models is in design.
Okay, it's actually a perfect timing for that question, because I just walked out of Jared Spool's session about an hour and a half.
Wasn't that wonderful? The magic.
It was fantastic, yeah. Jared is such a great guy. I love him to death.
And I'll just mention at this point to people who are watching, Jared Spool did a presentation that showed how magic tricks and what magicians do has application in design, and how that the magician presents one thing for the user while other things are really happening behind the scenes, and that's the art of magic, and it's the art of good web design too. So with that thought, let's go back to your
and
comments.
It's kind of funny, because in the beginning he was talking about the idea of a trash can. When you delete a file on your on your desktop, drags it into the trash can, it makes that nice little crunching sound, and you get that whole idea of, I've deleted this file, and then he points out that there actually are no files. It's a bunch of 1s and 0s on a bunch of machine code. There are no files, and they're just little hash marks that say, okay, this file, these 1s and 0s can be reused and all that stuff. It's actually the exact metaphor that I used to describe mental models in the book, in Designing the Obvious.
Interesting.
So it was pretty.
He must have read your book. What can I say?
I know. Well, I know he did. So I'm starting to wonder. Maybe we're stealing ideas from each other now.
That's all right. We can all share them.
Yeah. So the idea of mental models is basically that that a user doesn't actually have to understand exactly what's going on. Another thing Jared brought up was how Google actually processes searches. By the time you run a search and get results, which can happen in 1/10 of a second, which can happen almost instantly, it's gone through 15 states, through 400 servers, and it's done all this crazy stuff, and it comes back to you, and that's all you know is that you hit enter and some search results came up, right? And that's kind of the mental model versus the reality.
Yes.
Mental models are basically, what it is that you believe about something, what it is you believe about a system, as opposed to what actually is true.
And I think one really interesting part of that is that you make the user believe the most simple thing you can possibly make them believe.
Yeah.
Despite, it's like the swan, it's gliding along, but underneath it's paddling like crazy.
Paddling like crazy, but it looks very, very smooth on the water.
That's right.
That's a very good analogy. Exactly.
I like that. So,
yeah, it's great.
So, are there any specific examples beside the trash can you give to people in the book around those kind of things?
Well, to describe mental models, I used exactly that idea, and then I can't remember off the top of my head what site I used as an example, but
let's just move right on and talk about the new one, which is
just glaze right
designing
over
the moment. What is the moment?
The moment. Basically, the premise of the new book, it's kind of a continuation of Designing the Obvious, but basically it says, so Designing the Obvious is sort of these high-level core ideas to good web application design. And so they're kind of macro-level principles. And in Designing the Moment, excuse me, I sort of expand on that and say, okay, but within each one of those those core level, you know, things, once you're actually using an application and you're interacting with the detail here and there, each one of those moments that you're having has the ability, you know, it can have a dramatic effect on how you perceive an application. You can end up, you know, trusting an application or a company a lot more because you have a really good experience and everything's sort of flowing well. Or you can get stuck one too many times while you're dealing, you know, get some bad error messages, walk away feeling really dumb, and you can end up really hating that experience, you know, and you can end up hating a company by extension because they put out such a product that makes you feel terrible. So each one of those moments is very, very important, and designing the moment is all about sort of micro level principles. It's a collection of stories. There's 31 stories in the book from design projects that I've actually worked on. You know, like for example, I designed a character counter once, and you know, that's a very, very simple example, but basically,
where it checks you don't type too many characters in a box.
Right,
for example.
exactly. It's an input field with a restricted character limit. So
yes.
you know, you can only enter 10 characters. How do you let someone know that? You have to let someone know that there is a limit. You have to let someone know when they've reached the limit. So these are the kind of moments. You know, that's a moment. A user comes to that page and he's creating a password, let's say, and he can only fill in 10 characters. How do you negotiate that moment with your user? What does the user have to think about? What do I have to know? If I type in too many characters and then hit submit, I'm going to see an error message. I don't want to make the user feel like an idiot right then because I didn't tell him that there was a 10 character limit, you know? So basically, you know, I talk about how to use a character counter to do that and how I've used it in different projects and sort of what the things to think about there are and some of the other implementations that I've seen and what is wrong with them. And basically within each story, each one is just a little snippet of a design story from a project, and each story has sort of explains and elaborates on the principle or concept or idea that I used to solve that particular design problem. So designing the obvious, very high level, macro level principles, and designing the moment is a bunch of sort of micro level principles.
But I would say that the sum of those moments is the user experience, really.
Exactly, and that's actually the first line of the book. So thanks for setting me up on that one. It's basically that a good user experience is all about good moments, and that's what it is. A user experience is all about that. You know, it's more than the sum of its parts, of course, but basically it's a bunch of individual moments. And if in each moment you feel confident and you understand what's going on and you feel like you know what you're doing and you're getting somewhere and you're making progress and you're feeling good about yourself, then that is going to equate in the end to a fantastic user experience.
So the advice is identify all those little moments within your site or application and make sure that each one of them is as refined and smooth for the user as it can possibly be. Is that what we're talking about?
That is exactly what we're talking about. Each little interaction that you have, whether it's creating a new password or forming a new social networking connection, or finding out that there's going to be a new release coming out in 2 weeks of, you know, there's some new features going to come on your site, on your favorite application, or whether it's registering or signing out or canceling an account, all those little moments are things that need to be thought about, that need to be thought out and designed so that they're understandable in the moment that a user is going through them. Because basically whatever moment you're in at any given time is the most important thing. You know, you may have a 90% happiness satisfaction rate with an application, but that extra 10% is because like you don't like how this particular screen works. You know, and maybe if that screen, that one piece had been thought out a little bit better, you know, it would contribute to an even better user experience.
So the devil's in the details.
Right, the devil is in the details, and this one's all about the details.
Well, we're really looking forward to seeing that.
Excellent.
And designing for the moment will be out when?
It should be out in April of 2008, which right now it's March of 2008, so it should be out in a month. By the time everyone sees this video, I'm hoping that the book will actually be out by then.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I've had the pleasure of talking to Robert Hoekman Jr. here at South by Southwest 2008, and I really want to thank you for your time.
All right.
I've really
Charles.
enjoyed it.
Thanks.
Take care.